So it's time for the 2022 year-end wrap-up. And I want to just take this time to share a little bit about myself, introduce myself to those of you who are new to me this year, who came across my social media accounts or my podcast, for example, and started following me. And also share a bit about how the journey has been for me this year and maybe what's coming up ahead for those of you who are interested in maybe working with me especially. So 2022 has been a year of tremendous growth, both personally and professionally. And that just means that it has been a very challenging year, right? The work that I put out, whether it's the content on my social media channels or on my podcast or the reflections that I write, even the courses and coach that I teach and, my coaching consultative or coaching sessions, they all revolve around a central core. Okay, it's not even, I was going to say theme, but not even really theme, a central core. And that's my reason for being, my reason for living, and more I believe the reason for which I was created, right? To ponder on these questions and then to be able to understand more deeply and share these things and help other people who wish to enter more deeply into this, what I call the interior journey. So for me, and this wouldn't be new for those of you who've been following me for a while, the central question or questions, a cluster of questions, have always been, who am I? Why was I created? How am I meant to live this life in a way that has meaning and purpose? My relationship with God is the most important relationship in my life, and it has been something that I continue to unpack and discover and learn, even what it means, who God is. It hasn't been a static relationship. In fact, I can honestly say perhaps my relationship with God is the relationship that has changed and grown the most in the last 3 decades. And that has been very challenging as well, because as that relationship shifts and grows, I've had to let go of a lot of things that I clung to in terms of my conceptions about myself, my conceptions about God, about faith, about what it means to be Christian, Catholic, what it means to be a disciple of Christ. But at the heart of all that, I yearn for authenticity. I want to be able to be myself, the self that God created. And it's so hard, Ever since I was a kid, I've learned that it's so hard because there's so many ways in which I can be rejected if I am myself. It feels that way, right? There's so many ways in which if I want to be accepted, if I want to do well in the system, if I want to feel maybe belonging and loved in the places that I am, ranging from my family to among my, in school with friends. There's so many things that tell me I have to be a certain way, or I should be a certain way. This is what it means to be good. This is what it means to be virtuous. This is what it means to be successful. And as I listen to those voices, because we can't help it, I couldn't help it. I think I found it harder and harder to answer that question. What does it mean to be authentic? Who am I? Right? But that yearning and that desire never went away because I long to be loved for who I am. Even as I was learning how to act according to the scripts that I've inherited, even as I learned to play roles that won me some kind of approval, won me maybe some popularity, all of these never very stable or secure. There's always that fear that if I stop playing that role, if I stop being the kind of person that other people wanted me to be, I would lose that affirmation, I would lose that approval, I would lose love, right? But even as I was playing those roles and in a sense succeeding, inside me, I think that voice never went away, that kept asking, but will I be loved for who I am? And I think a part of me always knew I cannot be fully alive, really live and be happy if I cannot be loved for who I am, right? So that's been the question at the heart of me. And even as I got to know God, and more personally, so I was baptized as a Catholic when I was 6 years old, and so it's within the context of that faith tradition that I got to know about God and then started deepening my relationship with God. But I found, even as that relationship became the most important relationship in my life, and even as I put in a lot more effort to learn about Him or learn about my faith because I wanted to grow that relationship with Him, there were so many obstacles. In my core, the same fear resides. Can I really be who I am? Who is that even? Would God reject me if I really present myself as I am? Or do I also have to play a role with Him? Do I have to be do I have to be praiseworthy? Do I have to show Him my best side and hide my fears, my flaws, my sinfulness, and all the ways that I'm weak and vulnerable and naughty? Do I have to hide that from Him in order for me to gain His approval? I mean, when it became the most important relationship of my life, it felt like the stakes were a lot higher, right, for that relationship as well. So over the years, and especially, I think the last 13, 14 years, I've learned a lot more about this God that I love. I think more importantly, I've learned what it's like to be loved by Him. And that learning has taken place in a context of me discovering what it means to be myself, and what is it that has been preventing me from having the courage to be myself, having a lot of mercy and compassion for myself in not being able to be authentic. That had included, learning a lot of things about, I guess, in the realm of psychology, how I've been wounded, about family dynamics, about how the relationships in my life are actually dysfunctional, right? They have been normal to me. It's all I knew. So if it's all I knew, it's what I know as normal. But learning how things are actually not normal, not just in my family of origin, slowly, in the systems that I've been part of, in the schools that I've been to, in society, even in the church that I'm part of, right? That there are so many things that are actually unhealthy, dysfunctional, and so there's this dynamic, going on at all times where there is an ideal that is proclaimed. And I say this also at all, at all levels of environment, family, society, community, church, the country, nation, or even the world. There are ideals, some of which I align myself with, values that I align myself with. But there's this perplexing reality where so many people who are seemingly so convinced of certain values fail to live up to them, or live with, abide by those values spectacularly. And that causes me pain. Not just when it happens in other people around me. It hurts even more when it's happening in me, right? When I'm the one that find that I can't live what I believe. That I want to be a loving person, but I keep failing. And I find that I don't have that capacity to. And so often after I trip up and experience so much shame that I doubt my own self-worth. Right? And then in that cycle though, through coming to God over and over again, learning what toxic shame is about, learning about what shame is, how hurtful and dysfunctional a lot of these dynamics in my life are, that has caused me to go into these patterns. I have been liberated, I think, a lot through the years, through doing this interior work. But I mean, there is real work, there is real interior work, but it really isn't, I think, due to the interior work that I'm doing, but due to grace, how God has been leading me. I really, every year, every couple of years, He leads me to new pastures I would not have imagined entering. I literally would not be doing the kind of work that I'm doing today if I had just gone according to what I imagine is the plan for my life, right? It's really been so many levels of letting go and surrendering and dying to self, dying to preconceptions, to assumptions, all of which at some point in my life had been maybe very dear, had given me certitude, given me a sense of stability. And they had all served me well for a time, for a season, until it was time to, I guess, let go and go into the unknown and discover more, who's this person, that I am, that God continues to create and call me into being. So for the last 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, that I started the Becoming Me podcast. I started a business, and I'm learning the ropes in so many ways. There's so many new things for me to learn. All that actually surrounds how do I continue to become more who I am and do the life's work that I've been created to do, and how can I create more impact by becoming, I guess, sharper, clearer, and more seasoned and more integrated myself and more authentic in living the interior life and letting, Christ work through me. So in 2022, actually, as I'm recording this, the podcast, Becoming Me podcast, I'm about in 96 episodes. I'm 96 downloads, 96 downloads from 20,000 downloads. And that's quite a milestone. I mean, depending on, so for me, as someone who has never even, listened to a podcast before I started one, it's really quite incredible, right? That going out there, kind of like, as someone who is unknown, that I could be approaching 20,000 downloads of my podcast. And I've had listeners, some of you who have, reached out to me, connected with me. Some of you have become my clients. And I'm just amazed at how this act of faith on my part, like putting out this podcast and sharing my reflections, my thoughts, and has accompanied you in ways I cannot imagine. So that actually accomplishes one dimension of becoming more creative in the way that I can reach out to people, right? Because having this podcast means I'm in some way I'm not limited by space and time. I can share my reflections. I can share my insights. I can encourage people even when I'm asleep, right? I mean, my podcast has reached so many different countries. There are so many of you in different places, different time zones. So that's really such a blessing. And recently, one of the young men whom I used to mentor more closely and accompany more closely when I was working full-time in the parish. And then we've kind of drifted apart just, in terms of time and space. We haven't been able to meet up. And he shared with me how he's been listening to my podcast, and especially on long commutes or on plane rides. And I was just so moved that I continue to accompany him, even though, we can't meet face to face, and we don't even pick up the phone right now to talk. It's just not been the season, right, for us to journey together in the way that we used to. But that it's such a privilege that he continues to feel fed and encouraged by me through the podcast. So that's been something that has been incredible. I think growing more seasoned as a podcaster, still always wondering, trying to keep ahead just, have enough recordings, enough ideas that has been translated into podcasts so that I can continue putting it out. But that has been a real blessing. On the other front, I've been also learning how to develop, trying to figure out what's a good business model for me to do the work that I do without burning out, keeping it sustainable, and also being able to be effective and impactful in terms of getting results for the people that come to me. And also helping more people, right? So helping more people in a sense of, for me, it's never been about really reaching huge numbers or scaling to huge numbers or earning, huge profits for this work. It's really learning to do business, learning to be a solopreneur is actually a means for me to fulfill my mission, right? It's a means for me to be able to do the work that I'm called to do in a way that is more sustainable, is more emotionally healthy for me, in a way that honors the value of the work that I do, that calls forth greater enthusiasm and commitment in the people that wish to work with me, and in a way that can allow me to create material that can empower others to lead themselves through this process. Okay, so that's what I'm moving towards, right? I don't want to just work with people in such a way that you depend on me, like on one-on-one sessions with me, for example, or having contact with me to be able to grow. I want the contact time that we have to equip you to become better, more empowered, more savvy at how to lead yourself through this process of the interior journey as well. And on that front, there's been so much that I have had to learn, so much patience I've had to exercise, because that means that in terms of development, product development, service development, and growth, it has to happen slowly, because I have to deliver in the meantime, right? I have people I'm working with, but at the same time, I'm trying to hone it, refine it, so that every year the process gets better. I have greater value that I can offer my clients and students, the people that come to me for my services. And you may know, if you're following on my social media, that I have not really been doing much selling at all. As in, I haven't really done much marketing or selling over on social media as yet. Okay, on one hand, I'm actually kind of relieved about that, because that's not something I take to, or I know how to do intuitively or quickly. But on the other hand, I haven't had to do that because without doing that, I'm at full capacity. I have been at full capacity. So that's something also I'm so grateful for. Like now, at the close of 2022, I'm really fully subscribed for my Clarity consultative coaching package for 2023 that begins in February and runs to maybe September and October. Because I can only take at this point like up to 10 people through this deeper journey. Okay, because there's a lot of one-on-one work. There's teaching as well, but there's one-on-one work, and I already have more people expressing interest than I can take on. So I have to really pray about and think about how going beyond 2023, maybe moving into a group coaching kind of a container, right, which means that I have to develop really effective structures and curriculum so that more people for whom this is the time to learn about your scripts, your programming that kind of like limit you, and learn more about your motivational design and your temperament, your cognitive preferences, right? There's this very specific journey that I lead people through in Clarity, so that you can gain clarity how to move forward in your life to discover who you are authentically and what's holding you back from being able to be that person. Right? Like, why is it that it's hard for you to accept yourself as you are, for example? It's a foundational kind of program for further interior journeying. right? And I've had, I think, over 20, about 20 of you come through the exploratory integrative life consultation session, my EILC. That's always the first stop for people who wish to work with me, one-on-one with me through coaching. It's kind of like a diagnostic process to help you understand where you are in your journey and give you some strategic insight as to what's the concrete next step for you to take to become more yourself or more authentic or to grow closer to God, because there are many different dimensions to this journey. It isn't just spiritual, right? I mean, it isn't just psychological. There's also about self-awareness, self-knowledge, mindfulness, self-acceptance. So there are different resources out there. And a lot of times people get stuck after a season of growth because they think that the resources that have helped them before is meant to keep helping them, for the rest of the journey, and that's just not true. All right, because at different stages of our growth, we need different kinds of resources, and we also need a certain degree of tailoring, of understanding, of learning how to identify what kind of resource do we need at this point. What kind of discipline, maybe if we need professional help, what kind of professional help do we need at this point to move forward? So that's what I offer in terms of consultation in my EILC, and that's also been fully subscribed pretty much the whole year. And at this point, any new inquirers joining the waitlist for my EILC for 2023, you're looking at maybe April before I can maybe see you, right? And that's both a great thing in the sense that means that this service is providing value to people, and people are putting their faith, you guys are putting your faith in me. That at the same time, I also need to think about how to develop this container in future so that maybe the wait time doesn't have to be that long, but without compromising the kind of value that you will receive, right, through this EILC. So, well, that's it. That's my year-end sharing. I just want to thank all of you who have been following me, for being on this journey with me, even those of you who have never sent me any messages or have not contacted me directly and just quietly maybe consuming my content. I'm actually like that a lot when it comes to me as a consumer. When I'm following somebody else, the coaches or the spiritual masters that I seek out to be fed, I'm usually that quiet consumer that doesn't really contact them, but I receive so much from them, and I'm so grateful for them. And I know that there are those of you who maybe feel that way about me, and I just want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for listening to my podcast, for following my content. But then, of course, for those of you who do engage, who like my posts or send me messages and let me know how my work has impacted you, I also really, really want to thank you, because that has kept me going at times when maybe, it's just really tiring, and I do wonder sometimes, is this the way to keep going forward? Your encouragement and your sharing of how my work has impacted your life has given me the energy to also keep going. It's one of the signs that I know I'm on the right track. So, I wish you all a wonderful close to 2022, and that you may have some time to rest amidst the gatherings and festivities. For those of you for whom maybe this is a painful time, maybe where loneliness will surge, I also see you. I know that, things are always complex and even complicated. I hope that you will find accompaniment in some of the material I have put up before about loneliness and solitude, and that you also be encouraged to keep going, because the journey is long, but it's not just the destination that matters. I know it sounds trite, everybody says that, right? But really, every step counts, and even those moments where we just take a break from the journey because it's so tiring count. May you be blessed by grace and find that you are always given just enough to keep going. See you in the new year.